I refer to the one we call Doubting Thomas. But is that really an accurate description of the man? I think not. Call him a hard-eyed realist if you wish, or call him a straightforward, no-nonsense thinker if you like, or call him what I choose to call him, the man who called a spade a spade. Call him whatever you wish, but please, for heaven's sake, let's stop calling him Doubting Thomas. You see, Thomas was a realist. Thomas was a man who knew what this world is all about. Thomas was a man who had no use for easy words and glib phrases. Thomas was a man not given to flights of foolish fancy, nor was he a sucker for sticky, sweet sentimentalism. Thomas was not the first to say, Jesus is risen. He didn't immediately jump onto the bandwagon with the others. He waited. He wanted to be sure for himself. In essence, he was putting Jesus Christ to the test. He was saying, by what he said and by what he did, prove to me that Jesus Christ is alive. I will not believe until I put my finger in the scars. The Bible says 8 days later, the disciples, together with Thomas, were in the upper room behind locked doors. And something happened. Something so amazing. Something which I believe makes the whole gospel message so clear that no one can ever miss it. Something absolutely incredible. The Bible says, suddenly Jesus was there in the room. And as you read the passage, I think it is unmistakably clear that Jesus came for Thomas. He passed right by the others with just a word of greeting, and he went right straight for Thomas. And he walked up to him and he said, all right, my friend, here I am. Here are my hands. Take your finger and put it in the scar. And then give me your hand and put it in the scar on my side. And Thomas, from the very deepest places of his heart, cried, my Lord and my God. What an incredible moment. And yet I believe that in that single moment, Thomas teaches us some very basic lessons about faith in Jesus Christ. The first thing that we learn from Thomas is that faith is a conviction about Jesus Christ. Understand, please. Faith is not a blind, emotional, irrational assent to some vague, hazy idea. Faith is not like dropping into a dark hole. Faith is not stumbling blindly along some shadowed alleyway. No, faith is taking hold of something real, something definite, something certain. And that was exactly the experience of Thomas. As he put his fingers into the scars, he realized that that was certain, that was real, that was concrete. And out of that certainty, there came the conviction that Jesus was absolutely unique upon the face of this earth. I find it fascinating to realize that the Gospels all were written with the distinct purpose of giving to each one of us that same kind of certainty. John says it himself right here in this passage which I have just read for you. He says, I have written these words. Why? So that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ. I have written 20 chapters up to this point. I have shown you Jesus. I have shown you Jesus in public and in private. I have shown you Jesus in his good times and in his bad times. I have let you witness his miracles firsthand. I have recorded for you the things that flowed out of his mouth. I have shown you how he lived, and I've shown you how he died. And every word that he spoke, every deed that he did, every relationship he established, all of it was motivated by God. He was no fake. John says he lived precisely as I have described him for you. And no one has ever been able to make that claim, and no one ever will. Therefore, John says, that's certain, that's real. Now, believe. I remember after speaking on a college campus on one occasion, I was speaking to one of the professors there, a man who said to me that his intellectual pursuits and his academic discipline had basically turned him away from the faith. And then he went on to say to me, tell me, why is it that you would choose to put your belief in this one man, 30 years old, lived 2,000 years ago, whose time and place in history amount to nothing more than the effect of a flaring match against the night sky? How is it that you could be so narrow in the midst of a world where we have all of these fantastic philosophical ideas and all of these appealing faith systems? How is it that you can be so narrow that you would build your belief in that one relatively insignificant man? I said to him then what I say to you now. If you were to take all of the professors of Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Stanford, and if you were to take everyone who is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and place them all in one place and give them 1 year to work, or for that matter, if you wish, give them 3 years to work, do you honestly believe that they would be able to come up with the Sermon on the Mount? Do you really think they would ever be able to write a prayer like the Lord's Prayer? Do you honestly think in your own heart and mind that they could ever compose a parable like that of the prodigal son or that of the Good Samaritan? The wisdom of all of our 20th century pales in comparison to the uniqueness of that simple Galilean preacher of so long ago. And not only that, I said to him, but let's suppose you were to take all of the leaders in the world in which we live, the political leaders and the business leaders and the military leaders, the whole works, and put them in one place, and then declare to them that on the next day they would die. Do you really believe that there would be any one of them who would die as Jesus died, with his courage and his commitment and his obedience and his love intact? In other words, can you find anyone, anytime, anywhere, who ever lived and died as Jesus lived and died? there was no answer. In the years of my life, I've done a lot of looking. I've done a lot of searching. And I'm not through looking yet. I'm going to keep on searching. I've read untold numbers of books. I've been wide open to anyone or anything offering to me an alternative to faith in Jesus Christ. Wide open. And yet I say to you, after all these years of searching, I have never found anyone who could begin to compare with Jesus. He doesn't teach me everything that I need to know about geography or science or history. He's not even my expert on literature. But he is my expert on life. He is my expert on God and the things of God. He is the one who shows me, as no one else ever has or ever will, he is the one who shows me what life in this world is all about, how we are to live, how we are to die. He is the one who shows me all of that so clearly that no one else has ever been able to even approach him. He is unique upon the face of this earth. Thomas came to that conviction for himself. And he inspires us to the same kind of conviction. I want you to be able to say, I have studied the life of Jesus. I have read it in the Gospels line by line by line. I have seen the things he did. I've heard the words he spoke. I've seen how he lived. I've seen how he died. And out of that certainty that he is unique upon the face of this earth, there is building up within me this deep conviction about him, that there is no one to compare with this Jesus. That's the first thing that we learn from Thomas, that faith is a conviction about Jesus, that Jesus is unique upon the face of this earth. But the second thing that we learn from Thomas is that faith is a confidence in Jesus Christ. Not just a conviction about Jesus, but a confidence in Jesus. You see, it's not enough simply to say that Jesus is unique upon the face of the earth. I mean, the devil can say that, for heaven's sakes. It's not enough to simply concede that there was something very special about him. We must go one step farther. We must go on to trust him, to believe in him, to put our confidence in him. You know, in the original language, the preposition in the phrase is translated better upon. Not believe in Jesus, but believe upon Jesus. That is, the facts about Jesus' life. That is to become the foundation upon which you and I build our everyday lives. If he is who he says he is, the Son of God, then we ought to be taking our bearings in life from him. If he is who he says he is, the Son of God, then we ought to be taking seriously his claim upon our lives. If he is who he says he is, then we ought to be willing to bet our future on him. That's what Thomas was willing to do as he stood there with his finger in the scars and looking up into that face. Thomas cried, "My Lord and my God." And it was a cry of confidence in Jesus Christ. You know, we're living in a time when confidence in public figures is not running very high. The ratings of the president, for example, have slipped dramatically. Why? Well, it's because people feel that maybe there is not enough consistency between what is being said and what is being done. But understand, please, that the president is not alone. Are you aware of the fact that the ratings for Congress, the approval ratings for Congress right now, are between 20 and 30%? 2 or 3 out of every 10 Americans have confidence in our elected leaders. Not only that, but confidence in university presidents is at an all-time low. Even doctors, do you know that? Doctors, the confidence in doctors is not very high. Oh, it's higher than university presidents, but it's still not very high. And then maybe, maybe worst of all, confidence in ministers is not very high either. And I think it's because people feel there is not enough consistency between what is being said and what is being done. And when there is a gap between what's said and what's done, there is no place for confidence. But that was never true of Jesus. There was not the slightest divergence between the things he said and the things he did. Jesus was absolutely the same, both in public and in private. Never any inconsistency whatever. And it is on that consistency that one can build confidence. One can build trust. You remember the old hymn? It said, trust and obey. That's what we need to do. We are looking at a future which is filled with uncertainty. We need to have someone, for heaven's sakes, we can trust in, someone in whom we can have confidence. And Thomas reminds us that Jesus Christ is the only one who ever lived who had total consistency between what he said and what he did. And as he put his finger in the scar and cried out, "My Lord and my God," it was a cry of confidence and trust. And that's the second thing we learn from Thomas about faith, that faith is believing upon Jesus Christ. Faith is having confidence, trust in him, for he is trustworthy. But there's a third thing we learn from Thomas. We learn from Thomas that faith is making a commitment to Jesus Christ. It's not just having a conviction about Jesus. It's not just having confidence in Jesus. It's making a commitment to Jesus. You see, commitment has in it not just the element of trust, but also the element of surrender. What I want you to understand is that when Thomas cried out, "My Lord and my God," he was not simply saying, "I will make him my own." He was also saying, "I surrender to you, Lord, complete control of my life." I see so many people in my ministry who seem to feel that faith in Jesus Christ is one of life's little extras, an additional line to put on the resume, a matter of personal convenience to take or leave as it may be, one of life's pleasant little lagniappes on your journey through time. I talk to so many people who seem to feel that the secret of having a significant, balanced life is to take all that we can learn from science and sociology, and all we can learn from culture and history, and all we can learn from family and environment, and then stir in just a little dollop of what we learn from Jesus Christ, and that's the secret to a balanced and significant life. Thomas knew better. Thomas was a realist. Thomas pulled no punches. Thomas called a spade a spade. Thomas knew that life has a hard, hard edge. And Thomas knew that the secret of significant living is not to treat life as a smorgasbord and move down the line and pick up a little of this and a little of that and a little of this and a little of that. No, Thomas knew that the secret to a significant life is to have one great, deep, burning commitment at the very center of your life. One consuming passion that governs your every day and every thought and every decision. That's the way to have a significant life. And so when Thomas put his fingers in the scars and then cried out, "My Lord and my God," he was saying, "I will follow you through thick or thin. I surrender myself totally to you." I want to tell you something. I believe that this was a great, great moment for Jesus. You see, all through the years of his ministry, there had been many people who had a conviction about Jesus. They believed that he was unique. I mean, after all, they ate the bread that he gave them when he fed the 5,000. That was unique. And they drank deeply from the living waters of his teachings. Yes, there were many people who had a conviction about Jesus. And there were even many people who had a confidence in Jesus. They believed that he would be able to deliver them. That's what the Palm Sunday parade was all about. Those people crying, "Hosanna," you know what they meant by that? They were saying, "You're the one, Jesus. You can do it all." Yes, there were so many people who had a conviction about Jesus and who had a confidence in Jesus, but then came the cross. And suddenly it was clear that those people never made a commitment to Jesus. And that's why I think this moment must have thrilled the Master to hear the cry of commitment from the lips of Thomas, "My Lord and my God. I surrender myself completely to you." And I believe that the Master would be just as thrilled if there were to be someone here who would ring out that same cry of commitment now. "My Lord and my God." Maybe this little story will say it for me. Out of the history of the state of Georgia, there came a time, it was some years after the Civil War, when a man named General John B. Gordon was a candidate for the Congress of the United States. Now, in those days, congressmen were not elected by popular vote. They were elected instead by the state legislature. And so on the day when the vote was to be cast for General John B. Gordon, he filed, together with all of the legislators from all over the state of Georgia, into the assembly room of the State House. And there they gathered, prepared to cast their votes by roll call. One of those legislators was a man who had fought alongside General John B. Gordon in the war, a man who had been a friend to General Gordon, and yet a man who, for some reason, had come to a negative verdict about this particular matter. He opposed the election of General Gordon. And not only that, but he worked very hard to secure additional votes against General Gordon. So many had he corralled, in fact, that the outcome of the whole election was in doubt. And as they proceeded into the roll call, and they approached the point in the roll call where this legislator's name would be called, he prepared himself to stand and deliver his negative vote. And just at that moment, something happened. It was late afternoon, and suddenly, through the windows of that room, there came a great shaft of sunlight, and the light fell precisely upon the point in the room where General John B. Gordon was seated. And in the bright light of the sun, there was there for all to see, down the side of his face, a long, deep, jagged scar. Mute testimony to the valor of the brave old soldier. A silent reminder that he could stand firm in the tough times. A silent reminder that he had shed his blood for the sake of others. And then they called the name of that legislator, and he stood, and every eye in the place was focused upon him. And with a voice choking with emotion, he said, "I cannot vote against him. I had forgotten the scar." That's a little bit like what I hope and pray may happen here today. That we shall be confronted with the reality of Jesus Christ. That we shall see him stretching out his hands to us. That we shall see his life and see his death and begin to realize what he has done for each of us.